Welcome to this morning's meeting. We are going to be talking about onboarding, marketing's role in rolling out the welcome mat. I'm going to try to figure out how to share my content. Okay. There you go. Let me give you a brief introduction to our panelists and then the topic. Extremely brief, given their amazing accomplishments and how they excel in their work. But Jennifer Dunham Wells is the Director of Marketing and Business Development at DeMello Schaefer. It's a role that she's previously held in different forms at other firms, including Shepley, Bulfinch, and Coleman, McKinnell, and Woods. Jennifer also spent 10 years working at This Old House, which we have yet to talk about, Jennifer, but given how much I love that show, I'm going to bend your ear about it some other time. And she's involved in all levels of the direction of business development and marketing at her firm. I'm going to go ahead and mute you, Katie Dayton. I'm sorry. All right. And Abby Gillespie is the marketing director for the Boston office at Perkins and Will. She's also an associate principal there. Abby's involved at every level of firm leadership, from smaller day-to-day details of the work of marketing to larger scale strategy. JJ Nelson is the director of brand communications and a senior associate at Bergmeyer. He takes an unconventional left-brained approach. I read it in your bio online, JJ, to his work, and tries to create places of safety and welcome within the firm, in addition to everything else that he does. We brought together this group of panelists because we were looking to explore the topic of onboarding at a range of scales and at some very different kinds of offices. We've just gone through a period of high volume hiring in which firms were looking for talent, bringing people on board. Turnover was very high, growth was very strong. And it occurred to me that after sitting in half a dozen sessions about marketing's role in hiring, I had yet to attend a session anywhere about marketing's role in onboarding. And I wanted to get into that topic a little bit and find out how we as marketing or business development or communications professionals could be helping to bring employees on board in a way that would help them get up to speed, fit in, and stay. In conversation with Jennifer, Abby, and JJ, I've discovered that there are far more facets to the possibility of marketing's role in this work than I had even conceived of before. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start with overviews of each of their firms and how marketing and BD and communications fits into the onboarding picture at each of those firms. So DeMello Schaefer, Jennifer, you are first up.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining on this miserable rainy day. It's nice to see everybody who's here. So I've been at DeMello Schaefer 3 years. We were founded in 1965. We have one office in Boston, 80 plus or minus staff. Right now we have about 84. Currently we have 6 principals. It's the 4th generation of the firm. We named 4 new principals about 3 years ago, and they're eventually we'll be running the firm. We have 5 market sectors: academic, residential, science and tech, senior living, and workplace, which works really well for us when markets go up and down. And our marketing staff is 3. Myself, a marketing manager, and a marketing coordinator. You want me to dive right into what we do?
Go for it.
Okay. So as Kate said, during the past 3 years, we've done a lot of hiring. DeMello Schaefer has very low turnover, which is very nice for the firm, but we since I started, have hired about 12 people. And typically what we do, their first day, you know, they have an office tour, there's a swag bag, which we'll get into later. We always have the new person have lunch with 2 or 3 colleagues who won't be on their project team necessarily. They may be people that they, and very deliberately will not work with on a day-to-day basis, but nice to get to know people in other parts of the firm. They're always the, you know, sort of the typical IT, HR, accounting overviews. Marketing starts to dive in when we do a headshot, and we always give them a heads up that's going to happen. So, because it can take people by surprise the first day. We always have the person introduce themselves at a monthly office meeting. We meet monthly. And then I do marketing and business development overview with every single new person. And that is really to help them understand how the firm gets work and what their role is in that. I think and shut me up, Kate, when I'm going on too long, because I could talk about this all day, but I found that many people don't realize that they play a role in marketing and business development. In so many cases, they may be that one person who is the face of the firm to the client. And they don't realize that just by doing a good job every day, they are, you know, reinforcing the reputation of the firm. So I dive really into the weeds about how firms get work, you know, the competitive process, the return value of return clients, the value of LinkedIn, it's kind of the length of BD relationships. You know, BD is not an overnight exercise. It's a long haul, as we all know, and about maintaining those relationships. We also do the standard intro to our graphic guidelines, and then we use a tool many of you may use called Open Asset to manage all of our digital assets. So helping people navigate that is critical to, you know, understanding our portfolio of work. And so I love it. I think it's a nice way to get to know people. And it also just sets up that, you know, we're the marketing team is a great resource for any and all questions. We have a page on SharePoint just to welcome everyone, and that is a video, but it's not moving right now.
Oh, boo.
I know.
Whether I have a way to fix that. Sorry.
That's okay. No, that's my fault. That's my fault.
Okay, here, picture all these people jumping.
I think that was Pride Day about 4 or 5 years ago. During Pride Month. Anyway. You go to the next one. We have kind of a self-service that HR set up that everybody has access to this page, and it's just a way of making sure they did all of the details of onboarding, you know, getting business cards, how to create a signature, all that sort of stuff, or reviewing our mentorship program. And it's a way of letting us know if we've missed something with them, and if letting them know all of the different parts and pieces. It's an introduction to their project team, the operations team, and it flows far to the right, but just to give you a sort of a snapshot of what new people, the process new people go through, or sort of what they have to indicate whether or not they've done all the things of getting started.
Oh, so Jennifer, you actually, folks who are new to the firm, sorry if I'm being the slow one in the group.
No.
Folks who are new to the firm actually get access to a planner.
Yes, everybody has an individual.
And this is what everybody sees.
Yes, so everyone has an individual planner that, and you know, it might depend on whether you're administrative staff or an architectural staff, what's going to be on here. But again, it's an introduction to who your project team members are, whether or not you've done all of these things, whether, did you receive these items? It opens up to a whole bunch of, a checklist of things you should receive, how to get business cards,
Great.
all of those things.
Awesome.
And then again, this is part of a much bigger packet or, presentation that I do with people, to help them understand, kind of the cycle of marketing and business development. And it's something I learned, I think about 8 or 9 years ago. People when I was at Shepley would ask me, how do we get work? How can I get involved in marketing? How can I go to an interview? How do we get work? And so I realized from starting to ask around that most people learn nothing in grad school, about how firms get work. They may take a, one session, or most people say to me, oh, I had a class one semester, my final semester. But they really don't understand how firms get work. And I think it's really critical, that everybody here understands how the firm gets work. We're very transparent, and Shepley was the same way about our, revenue and how things are going financially, but to understand the business of that, and how it's a cyclical process. You do marketing, you do business development, it brings in projects, you continue that business development. And that's how we get new work. I always emphasize that repeat work is, as we all know, much preferable to competitive work. And that each person here plays a critical role in our success at having repeat clients.
Right. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Abby, let's see if your video will play.
Let's see, because there's a few.
Oh, it did it.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Just a fun logo animation to get started. Good morning, everyone. You can, flip to the next.
Oh my God, it's going again. Our
Yeah.
success knows no bounds. All right, here we go.
Pretty amazing. Good morning, everyone. I'm Abby, as you've all heard, and I lead the Boston Studios marketing team here in Boston. And for those of you who don't know Perkins and Will, we are a global design firm. And we have a range of practice areas, which you'll see on the right, which is actually a little outdated. We've merged some, we've adjusted some, we've renamed some, but I think right now we're around 13 areas of practice. So we do all sorts of work, and we provide all sorts of services, from architecture, no engineering, interiors, landscape, planning services. So we really have a broad range of activities we're doing in our studio. And you'll see, I think one key metric on that slide is the number of marketers. And to me, I think that's always a really important thing to bring up. We have our own mini SMPS within Perkins as well, is what I like to say. There's 113 marketers across the firm. And marketing is not centralized. Marketing is within each studio. We have individual teams. And then we also have a firm-wide marketing group. And that firm-wide marketing group is really responsible for setting the overall tone for our firm, our overall comms plan, but they're not setting the tone for each individual studio. So I just think that's always something important to note. For Boston, we have 150 people right now. We have 4.3 marketers, because we do have one regional employee who is working across our 4 regional offices, which include Boston, New York, DC, and now Philadelphia. That is one of our new studios. And we have 11 areas of practice. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of things happening on a daily basis. There's lots of different activities on how you secure work, lots of different paces to these markets, and a lot of different practitioners that we're working with on a daily basis to be able to bring in this work. So it's all about dividing and conquering and making sure everyone has that same message behind, which is what we're really talking about today. So for when we welcome people into the studio, we're really excited. We just moved into our new studio. It is in the same exact building. So if you've ever visited us before, you come to the same place. We're still at 225 Franklin, but we're no longer on the 11th floor, we're on the 7th floor, which is fantastic because we knew the space, we fit it out differently, and now it works for us even better, especially coming back to this hybrid model. But when we welcome people, it really is all systems are firing. And by that, I mean, we have many teams that really onboard people, and marketing is very much central to all of that. We have lunch with the leadership team. That's our management, our operations, and our design director, where people really get welcomed. One thing Kate mentioned that I think is important to note, we had a really large hiring boom during COVID. I think we probably welcomed 40 people within a year's time, both interns as well as senior talent. And that was a lot. That was a lot for marketing. And I think that's when we really started creating these welcome to marketing lunches, because it felt more like we needed to do them in groups. It was just too hard to do things on an individual basis. So we do have introduction to marketing team lunches or morning sessions, just as there's an introduction to IT, an introduction to all different services. So we'll go through our brand, our style guides, we'll have your photo shoot, we'll go through your resume, your prior portfolio. And that's usually in a little bit more of a group setting. Obviously, there's some one-offs for some of those activities, but it's just that overall introduction, because if there's one thing that we have, it's resources. And so it's really important to make that one-on-one connection, but we have a little bit more of a fly birdie fly mentality, where we'd love for you to take advantage of the many tools that we have. See if you can obviously be directed and make sure that you're using those tools and finding those tools and exploring them, but then obviously having a point person, because when you have that many people coming on board, sometimes it can get a little tricky. It's obviously different when there's less hiring at a time, but that was an approach certainly during COVID. We also have a lunch buddy system. We have a Perkins and Will Boston microsite, which has all sorts of fun tools, where to get food, all the different affinity groups you can join within our studio. The list goes on, but a little bit of just an easy way to understand our studio and our culture. And then we also have ongoing training. So we have something called Perkins and Will University, which hosts, excuse me, allergies, which hosts weekly Friday sessions, which oftentimes marketing will be presenting. And just this week, we had 2 presentations on marketing actually in the last month. And then we also do external training, and we'll get into a little bit more of that later. From a tool standpoint, you'll see on the next slide, there is a lot of there's a lot of toolkits. I was actually just meeting with our director of IT firm-wide yesterday, and he was like, we need to come up with a new term. Everything's a toolkit. We have toolkits. So, and it's true. We have, this is an example of our app dashboard. So when you log in the morning, there's many different places you can go. They're all interconnected. This is actually launching kind of live as we speak. It's been rolling out since I joined 7 years ago. But you can view our people, you can view our projects, you can view our pipeline, you can view your time off, you can view your HR policy information. You can go to the legal website page to understand what you need to do if you're working on a pursuit and you need legal help. So there's just access to pretty much everything at your fingertips, and we call this hub. It's the hub of all information. So that is always there for you. And then we also have an entire site really devoted to marketing. And there's a small video on the next page. We'll see if it plays. And this just cruises through one very small section of our Perkins and Will branding microsite. And this is just an example of how pretty much everything is available to you. And at the very bottom of this page of the microsite, you really start to see we have colors, obviously we have standards, we have logos, but we also have storytelling guides and different ways to help you understand a little bit more about the firm from a narrative standpoint, as well as how we visually demonstrate ourselves. So a lot of this obviously is available online. It doesn't mean we're not there to be working with people as they come on board, but it really is, everything is at your fingertips. And Boston obviously adds to these things. We're creating resources, we're helping, but this is a firm-wide asset that we all have access to. And I think finally, and we'll just talk about this really quickly, from an ongoing learning standpoint, I know we spoke a little bit about, I said engage, or I said external and internal learning activities. And one example, and it goes back to what Jennifer was saying, is it's so important for us to be teaching and applying what we learn to our projects. And during COVID, we all went home, we all know that. And we sat here trying to figure out how we still want to stay connected to clients. And one of the most important things we did was basically it was a partnership between our learning and development team as well as marketing. And it was a grassroots effort to create a program that was called Engage, where we were putting our people into cohorts globally to really understand about the project life cycle and where they fit in and how we secure business as a firm. And these cohorts were amazing. They were groups of around 60 people. They were facilitated sessions. We broke down into smaller groups. There was peer-to-peer mentoring. There was also leadership to more junior level staff or emerging talent, and it was all facilitated by marketing. And I circled myself in there, but it was a really incredible opportunity to be really that hub of all these spokes and make sure you're bringing these people together to teach them the real fundamentals of marketing, business development, and understanding how that fits into our culture, because we are seller doer, but we also understand that it's not just leadership who is always bringing in the work, and it's not just leadership who has these connections. It starts everywhere, and everyone should be understanding how they fit into it. So that's a general overview of our studio.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
JJ,
Yes.
you got a toolkit for us? No, here you go.
Yeah. It's just so funny when you say that, because the word toolkit comes up way too often. So I also really love that microsite, Abby, just FYI, that's really cool. Yes, it's Bergmeyer. Hi, I'm JJ. I've been with Bergmeyer for about 4.5 years. And right as of today, we have 3 offices. So Boston, we've founded Bergmeyer in 1975. So we have an office on Sleeper Street, right in the Seaport. And we opened our LA office in 2018, 2019. And then our Columbus office in 2021, close to 2022. And so as of now, in terms of a firm, and you can go to the next slide, I'm so sorry. We have 91, so now it's 94 as of today, 94 employees across all 3 offices. Obviously our headquarters has the majority of our staff over in Boston. We are independently held, female-led, and majority female in terms of our employees, and our board of directors, 4 out of 7 as well. And Bergmeyer, rebranded to a design collaborative in late 2019, early 2020. And, kind of that organic move was really, happening because of the expansion of our services. So, everything from architecture all the way through to visual merchandising, branding, interior design, experience design, you name it, we bring it into the fold for the projects that we do. And I think that that's just a testament to kind of how we work. A lot of people are like, what the heck is a collaborative? And that's just the nature of how we work and what we do. So it really works in terms of kind of our flow. So yeah. That is the gist of who we are at this moment in time. To kind of speak to the way that marketing integrates into onboarding and welcoming new staff. To both Jen and Abby's points, we are, there from the start, and we don't go away usually, at least on our end. I was telling Kate yesterday on the phone, we know that we will have touch points with the staff, because we are, one of the departments that is most likely, covering or touching on every single team at every single point, various different departments at any given point of the timeline. So for us, it's really more so about the people when they start, making sure that they feel welcome, making sure that they feel like they are, not getting lost in a sea. I remember when I started, I got this floor map, and it was so intimidating because, you can walk through and you do an office tour and you meet people and they say, hi, you have no clue what their name is within 10 minutes. And then you're like, I was writing down like glasses with brown curly hair at that desk. So I would like remember to, spot check those people. But, this screenshot right here is something that we do. Goes through our graphics and marketing team and then over to the administrative team to put up on our screen. So when they walk in, we have those names of the people that are starting that day or that week. to kind of give them a warm welcome and show them a few of the friendly faces that they're about to encounter. That's just one touch point there. And, obviously we do that very much in preparation with HR as well. So to both of your points, the hiring over the past couple of years has definitely increased significantly and rapidly. So it really kind of, for our jobs, is always kind of a, once it happens, and it can happen kind of out of nowhere, then you kind of have to shift priorities a little bit, make sure that we're getting all of our ducks in the row for the new people. And you can go to the next slide too. I'm so sorry. And all of the various touch points that we would normally do, setting them up for the photo shoot, which great point there as well. Don't want to throw them off on the first day. So, giving them time to schedule that in advance, make sure their glam squad is preparing them accordingly and they have the proper attire and they feel very ready. We also, are able to give them kind of the Q&A for their bios for our websites, but in the same token too, one of the first ways that we introduce them to what we do is, sharing with them this hot seat campaign that we do just strictly over social media. But, it's essentially, it strips out, kind of some of the questions that they would answer on the actual website as well. So it just gives some more, insightful and thoughtful backstory behind kind of who they are just outside of what they do. So you can see here, for example, Lily Ball started, we asked them what their favorite song is. They can answer any, there's probably like 25 questions they can answer up to, 10, and we can pick 5 for kind of the purpose of this. But it also gives them an opportunity to engage with our social media, see what our tone of voice is like, see that we're irreverent, and be able to then kind of, start to feel that pride and excitement and joy to share out with the world, that they're working for this company and they're really excited about it. I think that was one of the, main things that when I started realizing the culture at Bergmeyer was very special and rare. So it wasn't about wanting to change it. It was just wanting to make sure that people felt empowered to embrace it and celebrate it and be okay with saying like, I love my job, or I love this project, or we're really cool. Because why? We spend so much time at work, and why not be happy about it? So I think that was one of the key differentiators. One of the other things too that I did want to touch on is, for me, that was rare, was that we have a dedicated director of education, Bill Spalding. So he does all of our onboarding. He does a 2-week orientation and training where he, sets up, the first week is a much more intensive process, but then the second week is kind of just more scattered appointments, where he really guides them through every step of coming into the company and understanding who we are, everything from our branding and our communications all the way through to, the technology and IT and all of the apps and tools and things that we that we use to, make our work. Even if, for someone like myself who isn't an architect or a designer, getting to know and understand what Revit even is, or what AutoCAD is, all of these things where we need to know these terms as marketers and communicators, even if it's not something that we touch on. When someone brings it up, the last thing you want is for anyone to feel like, I have no clue what Revit is, or whatever that may be. So I find that to be a very special opportunity for people to, get a really full, broader understanding of the firm and who we are and what we do and what we, strive to be, with Bill. And then I think one of the final touch points that we have here, so if you can see on the background, we've rebranded our town hall to a talk show called Tell Me Something Good that we do every month, because we just realized from feedback that people just wanted to hear positivity. They wanted to feel, happy, and the attendance rates have gone up, significantly. And this is very much like all hands in participating. So we put out a call for, the agenda items at each month, and then people are in charge of, putting together their segment, whether they're sharing a new project or sharing a new win or telling a story of a shout out for a team. But one thing we do during that as well is welcome the new Bergies. In a very, in an opening segment, and we do an icebreaker with them that actually lets them engage with our vision and our mission statement, and bring it into more of a personal point of view for them, and see how they would actually fit in kind of certain words to build that statement. And It's been very successful. I think it works better than what we were noticing when we're like, what's one of your favorite things you do outside of work? And everyone was saying family. So, family or my dog, or like that's, so it was very standard statements that didn't feel like we were getting to know anybody. But yeah, so there's many moments where we are involved in the onboarding process, and then kind of taking that through as we continue on while they're actually working there for months after.
That's awesome. Thank you all. All right. I said everybody I was going to use air horns to keep us on time. Fail. Totally didn't use air horns. Blew through our Q&A time for the first session. But let's dive into a couple of questions and have a little bit of conversation between us. And we will do a Q&A at the end. But for now, I think we'll just talk amongst the 4 or 5 of us. It's striking to me, Jennifer, Abby, especially in your slides, you both showed the business development cycle and talked about business development as a continuum. And that's professional practice 101. As Jennifer, you said, like it's as if there's a missing segment in school. And so I'm kind of curious to learn from you and from you too, JJ. Is this something that you've all noticed in your onboarding, that there's this missing piece of how architecture works? And can you speak to, what your new employees are getting out of that part of your training?
Jennifer, do you want to speak to it first, since you do so much first?
I don't need to go first.
Oh, okay.
Abby, if you want to dive in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's absolutely something that's missing. And we obviously, putting that much effort into a program called Engage, it's something we really recognized and immediately started attacking. And, being able to bring, I think we had 8 cohorts go through the Engage program, and they were 60 people each. It was all virtual. And now we're taking those materials and we're trying to consolidate them to more of a pocket guide application, so that during those weekly lunch and learns, which are firm-wide, we or even in our studios, we can be sharing the information from a marketing perspective to all employees. I think you're spot on. What's most important for us is making sure that, or just helping our emerging talent understand how work is coming in. And so going through relationships, understanding how your network works, understanding the pursuit process and why we're doing these things, and the crazy amounts of data and materials that we need to keep track of, because that's what clients are looking for. It's absolutely a whole. I will give a shout out to Carolyn Cooney, who is our firm-wide director of marketing, and she actually was formerly part of the Boston studio. She still is here in Boston. But she and our managing director, Janelle DeAngel, they actually did a 3-day seminar at Syracuse University on professional practice and the art of business development, and what it means to then join a firm and start working and understanding how you procure work. So I think schools are really recognizing that it's a whole, and I think it really is in our best interest as marketers to really help those emerging staff members, because they're not coming out of school with it. And it's so important to be able to understand how you're going to be getting business, because here in our studio, when you become an associate principal or a principal, you have a sales goal. It is part of your leadership. So you need to make sure that you're able to bring in work, and that is part of the leadership.
Yeah, interesting.
And I think we meet with emerging professionals every year, and then other internal groups. The project manager group, who are a seasoned group of people here, last year asked to have the marketing and business development overview, because they realized there was so much they didn't know. And helping, Abby, to your point about renderings and all of the materials, that project teams don't recognize always that marketing is desperate for those materials, right? And so we've got a process now where they, automatically a project team will send us those renderings, rather than us kind of hunting around and digging around for materials that we can use to promote. I think LinkedIn is a tool that in my previous firm, I realized half the principals didn't understand the value of it, didn't know how to use it. And I think, helping people understand LinkedIn and the value of LinkedIn. And we do a whole thing on showing engagement and kind of what what different posts and sharing those posts and commenting on posts, kind of what that leads to. I had it in the presentation that we looked at together as a group the first day, but I don't have it here. But I mean, LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, as we all know, and a lot of people, even principals, don't have any idea.
Even marketing directors don't have any
Yes.
idea. Okay, I have a little idea, but not as, I'm sure I could learn a lot. I'm curious. I mean, we know that LinkedIn is like a very, very powerful tool for connecting with peers, clients sometimes, and potential employees. How do you do LinkedIn training or, Instagram training? JJ, I know you guys do a lot on Instagram. Like, how does that look when you actually sit down, nutsy boltsy? Like, do you sit one-on-one with somebody and set up their profile with them? What do you do?
Oh, yes. I mean, we will handhold and walk them through that step by step. And to Jen's point, it's the more senior leaders at those points that are, a little bit more detached from the social media, at least from my experience, or the very, very new emerging professionals that just don't see the value in it yet, or feel intimidated because they haven't built a network, so they feel like, who am I speaking to? Does it even matter?
Right.
And so for us, that's the most important thing, is kind of dispelling all the complexities of what this BD monster is, but also allowing people to realize that there's different personas you can take on based on what your strengths are. So if you feel like you are someone that is very, like engaged on social media, engaged on LinkedIn, and has that ability to be a thought leader, there's that path that you can take there. And I think that, then there's also the other path where if you are a social go-getter and you love being out there and you love talking about what you do and where you work and meeting other professionals, that's that opportunity. So for us, it's, more so that we'll do these monthly kind of, we really use the town hall as a kind of, grounding there to start. So we'll always have like one tip of the month that our marketing manager Celine will lead, which is usually more often than not, sometimes just as simple as literally going through the breakdown of putting up a professional headshot, putting up a branded banner, making sure that you have a small about you, things like that. Where then, depending on what that is, then we'll, Celine will have open office hours where people can come in and sit down one-on-one, go through it, have them, work on their profiles, or, have her answer any questions or guide them on certain directions, whatever that may be. So it's really, there could be group moments or there could be more personalized moments, but we really do like to open our doors up to make sure that people feel empowered to present themselves the best. I think one of the most important things I try to, get through to everybody is that this is also just as equally as beneficial for you and your personal professional growth as it is for the firm. So you will grow, you will be able to, like that's how you advance in terms of your profession, but that's also how you just grow your network and make these connections where you look at someone like our president, Rachel, and they say, how did she, get where she is? And it's all about, your connections, your network, and building that in a thoughtful way. So.
And this all starts with this all starts with onboarding and setting the tone and that's bringing it back to onboarding, because I think what I'm picking up also as a theme from all of you is that like your first week, your first 2 weeks, your first month is your first touch point, the first opportunity you have to engage with marketing and BD and communications teams. And that then it starts to build a rapport and set a tone for how you will continue to engage during your time at the firm.
Absolutely. And marketing central to the firm. And I think that's one thing a lot of people often overlook. We are working with all the leadership team. We're working with everyone on everything at all times. We usually have access to the fun stuff. We have access to all the data and the research or whatever it may be. So I think taking the position that marketing is central to the onboarding experience, as well as the health and the feel-good nature of your firm, is so important to remember.
I think JJ's comment about, your network, I think one of the things I reinforce with new people is your classmates, a third of them will go on to being on the client side. They'll become directors of capital planning. They'll become, heads of planning at a hospital, whatever it might be. but staying in touch with those people and how much movement we all know clients have from place to place to place, maintaining those relationships is so critical. And networking doesn't have to mean going to an event with 200 people and meeting half of them, which is completely intimidating to everybody, including myself. But networking can be grabbing a cup of coffee, texting, whatever it might be, just staying in touch.
That's so important. I was talking about business development with somebody who was 1 year out of school recently. And she said, but I don't engage with, the decision makers on the client side. And I said, well, who do you engage with on the client side? And she told me, and I'm like, well, that person's going to be the vice president someday. So keep in touch, go out for coffee.
Exactly.
So true.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right. I'm sorry, I was sharing screen that whole time and I didn't even realize it.
All good.
I need some onboarding. Let me share. But I wanted to know about swag. Because it is a fun part of onboarding. And I was just curious to know, what do people share? And beyond just wanting to go shopping on all of your stuff, we know the power of giving a gift, right? And by handing somebody a coffee mug, you're giving them a present and saying, like, welcome on board. We share a bond. And I'm sure that a social psychologist could explain this much better than me. But can you just walk us through your swag? And this time I really will use my air horn.
Sure, I can start because it's our swag up there. We share, a bag in the hopes that people will carry it all over the place with the firm name facing out. We have a water bottle, notebook, all those things. But we also have a book that one of our principals, Ed Hodges, put together about 7-8 years ago. He wrote a blog a week for 50 weeks and then turn it into a book. And it's fun for people to see. It gives you a really comprehensive look at the history of the firm. DeMille Schaefer Cooks, a couple of years ago, a new person came in and they had talked about how their old firm had put together a cookbook. And we have, I don't know, I can't cite the data point off the top of my head, but we have people from so many parts of the world, and food is a big part of our culture. And so a few years ago, we decided to gather recipes from everybody. So many people here, their families are on the other side of the world. And it was a little bit about connecting to each other on a larger, bigger way. And people brought cookbooks with a story about recipes, where that recipe came from, whether it was, something they did with their grandmother growing up, and we turned it into a cookbook. And it's been really fun to share internally, but we also sometimes share it with clients and others, but we give it to all new employees. It was just published last fall.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
I do too.
Abby.
I love the cookbook idea.
Yeah.
We have a regional cookbook, but we never printed it. And because every Thanksgiving we have a big long table that seats 150, and we do a regional cookbook Thanksgiving with similar to what you're saying, Jen, with all the different cultures and recipes that people share among their own tables. And it's such a great culture building activity. I love that. I love that you printed it, because ours is just lost in the ether somewhere.
Right.
So we have lots of swag. A few things here. I love swag. I should have brought my Perkins & Will Yeti. I'm just drinking out of a Starbucks cup right now. When we moved into our new studio, we got everyone Yetis, which was really fun. And we had these pouches for our new brand launch, which isn't new anymore. I think it was 2019, which I actually still use. And I have it even here with me today, because what I do is I load up all my notebooks and whatever I'm bringing to the studio. We don't have assigned seating, so it's really great for just moving about to have your stuff with you. Every year we have an annual t-shirt contest, which is really fun, and everyone there's a few guidelines, especially around brand, but everyone has an opportunity to put a submission in. They get posted physically in the office, and then you go and you vote, and then it gets made. This was actually made by one of our marketing coordinators, Haley, and everyone loves it. And it's also used for, you know, any of the sports, softball, volleyball, whatever we're playing, whatever league we're playing in that year. And then there's all sorts of things, notebooks, pencils, hats. My favorite hat that I wear is my Perkins Well hat, which I forgot to take a picture of. So lots of fun ways to show off the spirit. And I would say on the next one, you'll also see, because we love microsites, we also have a vendor that we have an on-demand company store. It's a little sad right now. We definitely need to add some stuff to it. It's probably not the highest of priorities, but you can get all sorts of stuff. So if you're going to a conference and you need a bunch of pencils, you can order them there, USB drives. It's all branded. You can get your tablecloths, your umbrellas for a golf tournament. You can get the hats that I'm talking about. So there's a lot of really great on-demand stuff that we have access to, which makes it really helpful. So, you know, I definitely will order from here if we have big events coming, but if just anyone wants, hey, I would love that safety vest to walk around site, they can get their own. Obviously we'll supply them too, but if they really needed it for something additional, you can go on here whenever you want and order whatever you need.
So we should all just jot down that HTML
Yep.
link right now.
It's a great
Order
gift.
your
It's a
Perkins
great
Hill
gift.
safety vests, only $22.84.
I wonder if you can even get it. The shipping is astronomical, so I try and buy in bulk. But yeah, it's a really helpful resource for us to have these things whenever we need them.
All right, JJ.
All right.
He has the best brand.
No.
I mean, Bergmeyer does branding. So I knew when I invited JJ and said, could you talk about swag, we'd get an eyeful.
Oh my gosh. I can't wait for him to show you
We're
all.
gonna start now.
Right? I know we're a little overboard on the branding, but in a good way, I think. We do take swag seriously, just like both of you. I think, making sure that there's a kit that they have right from the start so that they feel like they're a part of the team and they can wear it and do all the things. So we start with a welcome kit that includes a number of things. It includes everything from a welcome letter to the president all the way through to kind of overviews of the various different components of our company. Also like a heat map guide that gives them the local hotspots, coffees, lunches, drinks, things like that, so that, within each neighborhood of our offices, they know kind of where to go and how to get around for things they need, who to go to for what. They, get assigned a buddy. They also have their annual coach and kind of welcome to your team intros within those packages. And then our swag, so you'll see here, there's a little swag wall. So these are just up for people to utilize and grab whenever at any point. It's right around the corner from our front lobby entrance in the Boston office, but we have one of these in each of our offices, and those include everything from a various number of stickers, designs, to pins, to pens, to pop sockets, to I'm trying to see if there's anything else in there. That's, just kind of a range of things, more so geared towards what you might need on a daily basis for this purpose. But in terms of what they end up getting for swag too, on their first day, it's, they get the full tote bag. These are some of the sticker designs we have that, we kind of refresh every year. So annually we'll, kind of say which ones stay, which ones leave, based on feedback and what people are gravitating towards. They also get, the tote bag, which is branded with a t-shirt. We have like standard t-shirts that you see on the right, which there's two designs, that one, and then there's another one as well. And so they'll always get a t-shirt that we always have in stock. That's just general there. And then we'll do two very intentional bigger swag drops throughout the year, one in the winter and one in the summer, kind of align with our winter party and our summer parties. Which could be anything from, we try and switch it up and think of what are the things that we're not getting. So some years we do a beanie, some years we've done a half zip, some years we've done t-shirts or long sleeves, and then some years we've done bottles. The fun thing is too, I just really love, Abby, that t-shirt contest idea, because I think, one thing we realized is that we have a really, really talented and brilliant graphic design team. But we didn't ever want to just feel like we were only utilizing one person to create these designs. So we do kind of open it up to that team specifically to, play with some concepts, and then we go through them together. But I just love that broader whole firm involvement thing. That just seems like so much fun. I think one thing that we have in our benefit too is that one of our graphic designers is he comes from brand, kind of apparel branding for, a hockey team. So
That's cheating.
it is. So he finds ways to make it wearable in the ways that, like, we don't always have to just have our logo. We can play with our logo, we can have fun with it, but make it something that people are going to look on the street and be like, what is that? Oh, I want that. Like, those kind of, it's just more fun and wearable. I think one of our favorites that they came up with was the Bergie Barbie logo t-shirt that you can see on the little right-hand corner, which is just everybody's favorite. We have that in stickers, we have that as
Oh, whoops,
t-shirt.
sorry.
Oh no, you were there.
I wanted
So
to.
yes, we do very much have fun with it. We try not to take it too seriously. And I think that we also just like learn from what people are interested in having. So beyond just giving them a tote with our logo on it, like what actually would be something that people are going to wear out and it's gonna catch your eyes. It doesn't always have to be as on brand as we would say. It could be, but I think that, kind of just allowing a variation of options for people. One thing we have been looking into is having that kind of evergreen swag store option, available online. Because I think some people will come in and obviously if we got like the really, really cool Arc'teryx rain jackets one year, those aren't available for some of the new people this year. So they look at those though, and they want one, and how do they get it? So I think, we're trying to solve for that. Abby, I might be reaching out to you separately after this.
All right, now that we've all got swag envy.
I want to go to JJ's company store.
Yes.
I want to see that cookbook.
I know that cookbook is so cool. I love that.
There's
It
so
was
many
a
good
very
ideas.
fun process.
So-
I think it meant a lot to the people sharing the stories of where their recipes came from. There was surprisingly a lot of emotion involved, with telling the
Yeah.
stories. So it was a great process and a way to get to know people in a totally different way.
It's awesome. So now we've got about just under 20 minutes left, and so we can open it up to Q&A. If you want to turn on your video, I mean, we got a small group, small but mighty group here today. So feel free to turn on your video and even unmute. What the heck? And ask any questions that you've been holding on to during the presentations. I have my own questions, and so I can start us off with some of those, but unless somebody's got one and they're ready to go. Susan, go for it.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for this presentation. It was so timely because we've been having a lot of internal discussions among the associates group about ways that we can engage people more in onboarding. And one of my questions for all of you is, how did you overcome, and actually before I even ask the question, it seems like your firms are all very transparent and open and pretty fearless about internal communication. At least that's the way you all presented it. And but how did you overcome any resistance to kind of pulling the curtains back for especially fairly inexperienced young new hires? Because much of what you all presented, particularly Jennifer, because our firms are similar sized, we do some of that, but there's a real resistance to, I guess, communicating to young people that they have a role beyond the drafting 10 hours a day for which they're hired. Even though I feel strongly that if they're not talking about the work that they do in their world outside of the job, all these things. So there's some cultural resistance to, I guess, mistakenly leading emerging professionals to believe that they have a role when in fact they do. So I don't know if I've asked the question clearly, but I'm very interested in if there was resistance and how you overcame it.
Yeah, interesting.
I didn't ask anybody. I'm a big believer in, they hired me because I'm an experienced professional, and I started doing this at Shepley and then again here, and no one ever came to me and said, what are you doing? Introducing, I guess it's hard for me to process what you're saying, because I've worked in such different cultures that I can't really imagine. It's a whole nother thing if someone who's fresh out of school comes and says, I want to start going to interviews. I have had that conversation with people to talk about, building their portfolio up a bit and building their experience up a bit, but I've never faced any resistance.
Yeah, I would say we have a little bit of a run until apprehended motto. So I definitely don't face resistance, but what I can say is there are often emerging professionals that are very eager, which is incredible. And I think bringing them into the process early helps to show leadership their excitement for the process and the understanding. I think it's so important to understand who your clients are, which Susan. I mean, that's our job. And so when I'm looking across at the interview table and my team maybe of senior professionals doesn't match the team who is selecting us, I think that right there is the data you need to show, like, we need to have teams that resonate. And in order for our teams to win this work, our emerging professionals need to be prepared to be able to make these presentations and engage with clients at all levels. And it doesn't just start the day you get the RFP, right? It's what we're all talking about. It's understanding business development, it's understanding relationships. So that's a build that takes time. And so if we're not engaging everyone when they're coming in on how we win work, how are they ever going to be successful? You're not just handed a title and here you go win some work. You'll never be successful. So in order for the firm to sustain, I think it's so important for us to be teaching everyone how we're connecting with humans as humans and winning work to secure our firm. So I agree with Jennifer. It's hard because I don't face that either, but I think it's about proving to that table who you're working with and who needs to really represent your firm.
And maybe reminding leadership that at one point, all of them were eager to learn how to build their careers and grow into leaders and what their role was. And I think you could educate them about the value to your firm.
I would agree. I think I actually said this the other day in a meeting where we're kind of talking about a future plan, and we were talking about change and how change, like that it's always going to be hard to introduce change to people. So we were talking about it from, like getting the buy-in from our emerging professionals and the younger generations into kind of where this evolution could go. And I had said something out loud just off the cuff where I, had said, the concept of change, when you join a job, you're joining that job not because you think you want to stay the same for 5 years. You would want to grow. You would want to grow. You want to embrace change. There's some level of buy-in that you're getting from this because it's exciting you and it's making you feel inspired and eager for what's to come in the future. And so, in some ways, I think maybe just reminding that to leadership as well is the reverse side of it, is that this change is inevitable, and so if you don't prepare them now, like Jennifer and Abby were saying, well, what's going to happen in 20 years?
Yeah,
and they're going to teach us a lot about technology that I swear
Oh
I'm
my
God.
Yeah, we don't want to all be left behind.
And Susan, we're recording this, so maybe it would be great for you to be able to show this to the management team, to your team, so they can see, what everyone else is doing. So
That's a good point, Marcia.
That is. Thank you.
Elizabeth.
This is fantastic. Thank you very much. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you measure success for the initiatives that you're doing. Does somebody have a follow-up meeting with new employees just to say, what was helpful, what could be improved on, or what does that look like for your firms?
this is related to one of my questions, which is I'm gonna just rephrase, Elizabeth, forgive me. Do you get feedback on your onboarding process was my question. So maybe tag them together and answer them as a group.
Yes, we do. We will do it, a survey. So, with a batch, whether it's twice a year or once a year, usually twice a year. It's just we don't like to overburden people with surveys, but really getting a full understanding where it's almost all right, you've been here 6 months now. Tell us how that process was. How can we improve on it? And feel free to be honest and open and it's an anonymous survey in some senses. So, we usually do get a good response rate from that, especially because I think people at that level where they're just coming in or they feel appreciated that they're being asked to share.
We absolutely always get feedback. I would say it's less marketing getting the feedback. It's more HR getting the feedback. I think we have certain check-ins that are scheduled automatically, just so there is that continuous loop. I know for me, my lunch buddy, she's still one of my closest friends in the studio. And I think it's really important to make those matches because those lunch buddies can end up being your one main contact in the firm for a really long time. And so that's always really nice to have those really strong, authentic relationships that start on your first day, and that person's there for you no matter what. So yeah, we're always pivoting, we're always changing. I think, hiring has slowed down a bit, so it's easier to have more one-on-one conversations now. I was really talking a lot to those group onboarding sessions, which those were a little less personal because it was just impossible. How can a team do that much at once? But I think now it's more important than ever to really be bringing people on slowly, methodically, carefully, and having those conversations that are flowing throughout and not just relying on all the resources we have, but the personal connection.
Thanks for the question, Elizabeth, because you're making me realize we don't ask. And I think that will change because there's always room for improvement regardless of what you're doing. And I think it's important for us to figure out whether what we're doing is actually valuable to people on the other end of it. So thanks.
I think one of our struggles too is as we're growing in these other and opening offices elsewhere, that's where we're constantly trying to figure out how can we improve, most specifically with the more if you're in one of our other offices outside of Boston. I feel like there can be this disconnect because the cultures are growing there versus the one that's already established, and so that's like in my brain always that constant to make sure that we're checking up most specifically with those other teams to make sure that we're like, all right, you're onboarded, good luck, see you.
Yeah, there's always a million questions afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Other questions?
I had one.
Go for it.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm from a really small firm I know who all of you are, but my firm is really small. We're only like 7 or 8 people. And I definitely faced similar issues to Susan with some resistance to openness when it comes to new employees. And a lot of that has to do with some bad experiences offboarding employees and kind of a lack of trust when it comes to sharing, especially marketing materials like paid photography, professional photography. And in a small office, we want everything to be open. We want you to be able to see the breadth of our work and see our archives and all of that. But I was wondering if there are limits, if there are tiers, like how that works in a more larger structured office. Because we've been trying to figure that out a little bit because we really do want to be as open as possible.
We gave up setting limits, honestly. I mean,
really?
I think we're all professionals and we're hiring professionals. And yes, there are absolutely issues that you will face down the line where people will leave and they'll have assets that you didn't know that they had. But unfortunately, I think it's the industry, right? If they had a part in the project and they had a responsibility to that project, you want them to be able to build on that in the future. That part of their life doesn't disappear just because they left the firm. So I think giving access to people is actually on us to be able to do that so they can continue to build their career. Maybe they're stop along the way at your firm wasn't the right spot for them, but it doesn't mean that that didn't have an impact and their involvement didn't have an impact. So everything we have is accessible. Yeah, there are certain things that probably a little harder to find, but if people need something that really demonstrates what they're doing or what they did on a project, we will 100% supply them with them if they hadn't already probably taken it. I mean, we can take, but yeah. So I think it's just about understanding that it's a hard thing to constrain. So understanding maybe the conversation about how we would like to be referenced, how we should be using it, where it could be published, and having language surrounding that really makes your firm feel good about it being out there.
I would echo what Abby said, same sort of attitude here.
Thank you.
Same.
Other questions? JJ, Abby, Jennifer, questions for each other?
Mhm.
That I did.
I got one. I mean, I have infinite questions, so we could be here forever if you let me. The thing that when I think of talking about marketing and BD with folks in my architecture firm, the thing that comes to mind is how freaking busy everybody is and how this is non-billable thinking and work. So I know I can feel you vibrating with tension on that concept already. So I guess my question is, how do you work with very busy technical staff who don't have time for what might be perceived as extraneous stuff? Online, help yourself. When you've got the time, you go and learn. JJ, I mean, what does it look like for you? And Abby, have I totally mischaracterized that?
I feel this like just came up yesterday where, you know, I tell, Lily and Selena on my team, I'm like, you're gonna feel it. Don't take it personally when people just ghost you or they don't respond or they dodge you and you just sent them an email and you can see them over there and they just are ignoring it. I'm like, because they are so in the zone that they will completely, look at that as something so overwhelming and too big where it's just literally answering 5 questions. And I'm like, but you have to remind them that it is on us and it will come down to us when it's not there, when their headshot's not on the website, when things aren't where they're supposed to be for getting their resumes together, that at the end of the day, you just tell them, I'm accountable for this and I don't want to hear it. And so I just need you to help me do your job and my job. And that is at the end of the day, how this works. I can answer those questions for you if you'd like. But, it's just more about understanding that they're busy, but, setting breaking it down so that they're understanding where you're coming from too. I think because we are a small team for marketing and we handle all 94 employees in all 3 offices, it's just about letting them understand that a little bit more and helping to assist them wherever need be. But realistically, I say just giving good deadlines and following up and and then following up and then following up.
I don't know. I feel seen. Thank you.
We're pretty unabashed ourselves. I think we're always there. If we need something, and it's not coming to us. I'm like, this is your proposal. This is your effort. Like, we are here to support you. We will own this. We will walk you through it. We will have the agency to make sure that we are driving it home. But we can't do this without you. And you made this go decision as a collective, but you've made this go decision. So I think for us, it's just about staying on top of people and the tasks and honestly having a really strong process. We have a very strong process because when we're working with 12 different practice areas, we all have to march in the same order or else it's just pure chaos. So we have structured timeframes for things. We have structured tasks for certain aspects of things. Yes. Does it go off the rails? Of course it does. But I think we always try and start with our process to make sure that we're keeping track of everything and everyone knows there's an expectation. There's a set expectation. So when people start, they get it. And it's just like, okay, this is how things run. And it goes even beyond us. It goes back to our firm. And we're trying to really have that process as a firm because it's very rare that I'm doing things alone. We have other studios come into things all the time. And so without a structured process and without structured deadlines around whatever activity you may be doing, nothing will get done. So
I'm realizing that
people.
I'm realizing that a big part of the answer to my question is actually in the word onboarding. I mean, you're probably catching extremely busy people who ain't got no time for that, like at the exact moment when they have the most time for that.
And they
And
have to
teaching
have
them
time.
about this work
Yeah.
in the few weeks where they can't look left and right and say, I don't have time, right?
Yeah. That's a good point.
This is the time to teach people about marketing, business development, the cycle. Oh my God, it's a wrap up. This is the time, everybody, to teach people about marketing, business development, and the business development cycle. Because once they get swept up in project deadlines, I'm sure that the opportunity closes off. But if you can plant the seed early, disseminate the knowledge early and plant the seed that we'll be back. And we're going to keep talking about these topics.
I wish we had more time, you guys, because I'd like to ask you about how you guys, like, with that whole process question, how do each one of you like structure how to make sure that you're, you know, keeping up to date and getting things done, like what the protocol is, and like, you know, how you schedule yourself to keep making these changes to your goodie bags and all this other stuff. I'm just curious about that. If you have like a scheduled timeline, but now it's 9:30, so I'm gonna turn it over to Kate, but maybe we'll do part 2 next year.
I want to know the answer though. Can you do it in 5 words or fewer? It's still 9:30. We got 60 seconds.
Marketing planning.
Yeah.
All right, great. How about you, Jennifer?
Calendar reminders.
Yeah, calendar reminders, and it's not as structured. I mean, thinking about swag bags, it's sort of like, oh, well,
Yeah.
maybe we could bring in some new things here.
An event, a milestone. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still 9:30, Marcia. You happy?
I am.
We
Thank
did
you
it.
guys. Thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Thanks for coming, guys.
Thanks, Kate and Marcia,
Thank
for making
you.
this happen. It was
Yeah,
fun.
thank you both very much.
Thank you.
for all the questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
great day, everyone.